So, do you think these newly revealed documents proved that scientists made up global warming?
Absolutely. This particular university in England is the main scientific source cited by the UN. And over the last decade, other independent scientists have demanded to see their raw data because it didn't fit with the other raw data that other universities and research facilities had, and they'd always refused. In these emails, they talk about trying to suppress the real data, and they talk about working with government to not release the documents to Freedom of Information Act request. And they discuss in the documents, which the scientists that are in trouble have now admitted that these are indeed their emails. They were hacked. They're in the Associated Press admitting that this are their statements. They're not denying it. And in there, the bombshell is revealed that they were trying to manipulate the data, that they knew that since 1961, the Earth began a cooling trend, and that they were cooking the data. And they also talk about how to persecute scientists and other people and get their funding revoked, get them in trouble, get them kicked out of peer-reviewed journals if they tried to file scientific data that disproved that global warming was indeed happening or that it was man-made. So this is a giant scandal. This is Climategate, and it threatens to bring down the entire fraud that is the Copenhagen Treaty that attempts to tax all carbon emissions of first world nations.
And so why would they do that? I mean, why would they essentially make up global warming?
Well, we know why. We have the United Nations documents. We have the Club of Rome documents from 1991. A private group of banks, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and others are financing this. Ken Lay of the Enron fame in the mid-90s with Al Gore, this is on congressional record, in testimony, came up with the plan of a new form of derivatives that we've seen in banking that's caused all the problems based on carbon credits. And so it allows a select group of banks and brokerage firms to start buying and selling carbon credits on the world market and to create a whole new Ponzi scheme. And we also have the new head of the European Union on record in his inaugural speech last week, admittedly saying that global government is being formed and that the main tax for global government over the entire planet through global governance will be the global carbon tax cap and trade system. So they've been pushing this propaganda through and terrorizing the public, saying that all the cities on the coast were going to be flooded and that all the polar bears were going to die and that the world was going to be in great danger if we didn't pay them the carbon tax and let them manage society. In fact, I have mainstream news articles today out of the London Guardian where the United Nations is on record saying that they want a global enforcement arm that decides what industries you can have, what new technologies can be deployed. This is a worldwide financial dictatorship run by global oligarchs that have caused so much problems in Europe, the United States, and Russia. They're now just taking their Ponzi scheme to the international global level.
How did this stay secret for so long?
Well, for a long time, their data continued to be proven to be a fraud. I mean, Al Gore for 2 years has had to stop using that famous graph he shows of carbon dioxide corresponding with increased temperatures, increase of carbon dioxide causing temperatures to rise. The real government data and university data worldwide showed that temperatures go up and then release more carbon dioxide out of the world's oceans, and so that carbon dioxide levels rise after temperatures rise, and the sun is the main driver. They were caught in that fraud. They were caught in the fraud of saying no scientist disagrees with the statement that global warming is bad and is man-made. And now it turns out in international polls, many, many more times of top climatologists and hydrologists and meteorologists believe that man-made global warming is not real and is not a threat. And so there's also the hoax of saying that no one disagrees and that everyone agrees that global warming is real and is man-made. Everything this group says is a fraud, but they're following the rule of Hitler. The bigger the lie, the more people will believe it. So this entire hoax was already collapsing, but now the collapse is accelerating as thousands of documents and internal emails come out over 13 years as top scientists in the U.S., England, Europe, and at the UN colluded together to defraud the public, to lie to the public, and to terrorize the public through this fake environmental crises into giving control over their national sovereignty to these unelected United Nations and private corporate groups. And this private new World Bank, this new Bank of the World built around the IMF that everyone will have to buy their carbon credits from. We also have Barack Obama and Al Gore and George Soros and others set to make trillions, not billions of dollars in the next decade off this system. We have Al Gore making hundreds of millions so far. He literally owns one of the major carbon trading credit companies. The name of the company is Blood and Gore. No kidding. Gore and Blood. It's a British-based company. Al Gore owns part of the company that's based in Chicago that you will buy your carbon credits from, and the UN will decide what companies can buy and sell and trade in credits. And so this is a type of letter of marque or imperial license to do whatever they want. This is a forced takeover of the world economy. One of the greatest hoaxes in history, scientific hoaxes in history, bigger than Piltdown Man, where scientists said that the jawbone of a pig was a missing link of humans. It took 41 years to expose that hoax. We're exposing this hoax right now. This hoax, the biggest in history, is now imploding before our very eyes, thanks to these wonderful hackers that went into those computers and got that material. And there's another incredible facet to all of this that's just so amazing. Inside these emails, now being reported on by the Wall Street Journal and Reuters and BBC, this is admitted, they are manipulating the peer-reviewed journals and trying to intimidate journals that were allowing scientists to publish information in them that exposed man-made global warming as a fraud. And they're also in these documents working with the British and U.S. government to block Freedom of Information Act requests that would force them to release their data, because thousands of scientists that studied their data found it was a fraud. Independent scientists and research groups would go to the weather stations in Russia and in Mexico and in Canada and in Africa and in Tokyo, Japan. They would go and get the raw data and match it to what the UN and these university scientists and Goddard Space Center in the U.S. were claiming, and it didn't match. They were cooking the numbers. They were putting false data in these weather stations, and they were caught doing that and claimed they had just made a mistake. What these emails and internal documents prove is that this was a premeditated inside job, a fraud.
Pretty shocking stuff, and we'll certainly continue to follow this. Mr. Jones, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about this.